Can I tell you a story, Rick?
Has it got a wow finish?
I'd like to say so myself, considering it's a sensational episode of the Top 10 favorite and from what I believe are the best performances of some of the greatest actresses in all of cinema, folks. You heard that suspicious noise correctly. I'm starting from 10 and then staring sensually all the way up to number 1. This time it's actually true. And yes, sister, I have seen every film attainable of these artists, so keep remembering. Each list here comes from truthful, exquisite, and passionate accuracy. I'm so glad you came. Yes, today we are talking about one hell of an actress, folks, that has been long overdue on this channel. She is and always has been one of my personal favorites, as I know she has been yours as well. You know her perfectly well as the brilliant, bountiful, and beautiful Ingrid Bergman. Born in lovely Stockholm, Sweden, after Princess Ingrid of Sweden as an only child since her 2 older siblings died in infancy. Ingrid was indeed inspired early to play, to make believe, given her father Justus was a photographer and would film his daughter playing all the time, often encouraging her to dress up, wear funny hats, etc. However, both her parents died when she was very young, her mother when she was 2, her father when she was 14, so she lived with her aunt until she died 6 months later, and then her uncle. Needless to say, it was such a hard life growing up for her, losing her own parents, but the power and magic of make-believe and acting kept her growing and escaping. She received a scholarship to go to the Royal Dramatic Training Academy in Sweden, the same school Greta Garbo went to, and indeed was a Swedish force to be reckoned with. After working and training at the school and the theater for just 1 year, she was discovered by the Swedish film studio Svensk Filmindustri and ventured into the wild world of Swedish and German filmmaking, rising up from an extra, just like all of us actors, and then landing breathtaking leading roles, even against type like A Woman's Face, which was remade in America, of course, with Joan. Both films and performances are fantastic. By the time she made Intermezzo in Sweden, David O. Selznick, yes, the infamous man himself, saw the opportunity of a brand new leading lady to make up, to create. Not realizing Ingrid frickin' Bergman had more balls and power than any other executive in Hollywood, saying, "No, you're not making me up. You're not changing my name because if you are, then you don't see real talent and ability in me." And with that, Selznick took the bait, gave her a screen test without any makeup, and it's hilarious how perfectly clear they make that. And Ingrid just dazzles and grips you with her beauty. But once you see her inhabit a role, you are truly blown away. Ingrid Bergman is regarded as one of cinema's greatest actresses, folks. No question. No matter what film she did, she was always so remarkable for words. To do this top 10, you bet your sweet apples it was challenging, because her performances have touched me, captivated me, inspired me in all different stages of my life as a man and as an actor. Once again, I rate by performance rather than the film itself, and keyword, film rather than television, so it pains me, absolutely pains me to death to not count Ingrid's unbelievable, frighteningly powerful performance in the Ford Star Time presentation of the brilliant play The Turn of the Screw, directed by the great John Frankenheimer, which earned Ingrid her first Emmy for Best Actress. It is an utterly masterful piece of television that I had the privilege to find, and Ingrid just dominates the role, which was later played by Deborah Kerr in the evenly haunting The Innocents. One can't mention Ingrid without some controversy for sure, given to the amount of affairs, etc. But we'll get to that in just a little bit, because what should always be cherished are the characters she gave fresh and gorgeous life to, rightfully having AFI name her number 4 on the greatest screen legends of all time. So play it, Sam. Play the top 10 best performances of one of the greatest screen legends of all time, Ingrid Bergman. Now, starting off at number 10, we have Stromboli, already out of the gate with such a juicy one indeed. Now, I've heard it pronounced either way, Stromboli or Stromboli, the latter being pronounced by many Italians, including the great Martin Scorsese. I'd like to think it's Stromboli, so I'm not confusing myself with a rolled-up delicious pizza dish. God, those are so good. Anyway, focus. Stromboli has been regarded retrospectively as one of the most important films of the European neorealism movement, produced and directed by the auteur Roberto Rossellini, and for good reason. But what we're really talking about here is Ingrid's left turn into experimental filmmaking, rather than sustaining a conveyor belt of Hollywood blandness, which it was starting to get to for her. If you know the scandalous story, you know it perfectly well. It's power. Let's start briefly by Ingrid seeing Rome Open City, a truly gutsy film by Rossellini, and Ingrid wrote him a letter desiring to work with him, hopefully one day. So out went its original star Anna Magnani, who starred in Rome Open City, and in came Ingrid. Both artists, Ingrid and Roberto, had an affair while making the film. Both were already married, and wouldn't you know, Ingrid got pregnant. To say the affair caused so much backlash is really an understatement, going as far as calling Ingrid a powerful influence of evil, quoted by U.S. Senator Edwin Johnson. Everyone around the world rallied against Ingrid, thus blacklisting her for a number of years, whilst she and Roberto married and had 3 children together. But to get back to Stromboli itself, the film and performance was highly anticipated all the same. People love drama. And what can we say? So the box office was tremendous knowing the scandal, but the film was indeed trashed. Through all the scandal, which, very fair argument, if any leading man in Hollywood had done that, the press and publicity would be hushed. So there always has to be props to Ingrid for standing strong, for sincerely falling in love with her director, even though affairs are never condoned. Let's be firm on that. However, Ingrid's performance is still very brave here. For being at the top of her career at the time and making her own decision to do a story that was about a woman seeking refuge out of a camp and practically lost in translation about her dreams coming into fruition. But the culture shock of Stromboli sends her into more desperation. You could say it almost mirrors her own life of wanting more, but then once scandal breaks, she's kept in the dark to rot. However, like Ingrid's character, who spends a lot of the film improvising, she does overcome the challenges by looking beyond the present and fight for the future. It's a terrific performance for any artist to admire. Number 9, For Whom the Bell Tolls, the ultimate film adaptation of one of Ernest Hemingway's classic novels, with Ingrid playing Maria, a Spanish guerrilla among a whole group of fighters who will stop at nothing to defeat the fascists during the Spanish Civil War. But she will take a pause to fall in love with the American leader, Robert Jordan, played well by Oscar nominee Gary Cooper. Apparently, Hemingway wrote the role of Maria with Ingrid Bergman in mind for a future film already, even though Ingrid was Swedish. You know how it goes. Ingrid was so flattered and dying to play the role, but Paramount cast Norwegian actress Vera Sorina in the role, so it felt like the ship had sailed. But after the dailies, they went right back to Ingrid, who was more than ready to bring the spirit and spunk of Maria alive, willing to cut her own head off, let alone cut her hair to portray her. For her work, Ingrid earned her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress in her first Technicolor picture. It's always funny seeing someone obviously white, in Ingrid's specific case, Swedish, playing another nationality, such as a Spanish woman. But those were the days. And despite all of this, Ingrid kicks poetic ass as she worked day and night to expand Maria's complexities, which makes her performance so dearly memorable. Number 8, The Bells of St. Mary's. This was a hard one and might be a shocker to be so low on this list, guys, but once again, it never lessens its value, for Ingrid's third Academy Award nominated performance for Best Actress here is so special. I know for a fact it is one of my dear patrons' favorites, which, how could it not be, especially around Christmas? Ingrid plays Sister Superior Mary Benedict, who runs St. Mary's Catholic School, but welcomes the newly arrived Father O'Malley, Bing Crosby, reprising his Oscar-winning role, which earned him another Oscar nomination for this film. Their friendly rivalry is very engaging, as Sister Mary believes wholeheartedly in the school being saved and extended with a better building with modern facilities, and Father O'Malley does everything he can to help, even though they have such conflicting methods of making it happen, which could result to nothing. Ingrid is so lovable as Sister Mary, once again giving another piece of her heart. If you ask me, her best scenes are when she's teaching little Eddie how to fight, how to box. Not that it's impractical or impossible for her to teach such a thing at all, but that it is so sweet, and how she watches him in the middle of his fight is literally hilarious. She also has her own dear moving scenes towards the end, praying to God to rid of her bitterness, which is captured so powerfully by Oscar-winning director and screenwriter Leo McCarey. It's amazing also how Ingrid won her first Oscar the same night, being in Leo McCarey won theirs for Going My Way, being portraying O'Malley and McCarey directing it. She said, "I'm glad I won because tomorrow morning I start shooting the sequel to Going My Way with Bing Crosby and Leo McCarey. And I was afraid that if I didn't have an Oscar, they wouldn't speak to me. Well, Ingrid, after your heavenly performance as Sister Mary, everyone would give anything to speak to you." Number 7, A Woman Called Golda. Quite frankly, one of the greatest performances from an actor on a made-for-television movie, earning Ingrid her second Emmy for Best Actress, posthumously. For Ingrid sadly passed away just 3 days after the film premiered on television. Her daughter, Pia, accepted the Emmy for her. Some may say this wouldn't count as a film because it premiered as 2 parts in some countries overseas, even 4 parts in other countries. But in America, it premiered all as one long 3-hour film. And I couldn't leave this one out, especially among her absolute best. It is definitely a performance where we see beyond the fact that it is glorious Ingrid playing the controversial woman leader, Golda Meir, who became the 4th Prime Minister of Israel during the late 60s and 70s, Israel's first and only female leader of government, fighting for peace, but also fighting for Israel, taking down Palestine for it. I'm not going to get political here, but it definitely is interesting when you watch this film now with the backdrop of what continues with Gaza to this day. It is all horrible either way. But when we view in the context of Ingrid's performance here as the well-intentioned leader, we see the commitment and the strength that made Ingrid such a powerhouse. Like a committed actor, she traveled around Israel, interviewing people who knew Golda and watched interviews endlessly to know her mannerisms. And of course, it's not an impersonation at all. One cannot deny the dimension that Ingrid gives Golda that makes it such an effective and warm portrayal. Number 6, Casablanca. Of all the gin joints in the world, I had to put this iconic classic here, because the placement is not the film, it's by the performance. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, my God, I wish I could place this much, much higher, because Ingrid, Bogey, together is what Warner Brothers, filmmaking, cinema, passion is all about. Ingrid's performance is just captivating, being technically her 5th film made in Hollywood. She really commands and makes love to the screen with just one look. Major compliments to the stunning picture maker, Michael Curtiz, who directs the holy hillabeans out of this picture. Famously, both Ingrid and Bogey absolutely hated making this movie. They hated the dialogue, had more corn than Kansas and Iowa combined, as screenwriter Julius Epstein would say. And the script wasn't even finished. Everything was still coming together. And as an actor myself, that's when fear comes up, because no one seeks out to look like a fool and have their career already torched. She and Bogey tried to get out of the film so badly so she could focus on For Whom the Bell Tolls, actually. But as Ingrid put it beautifully, at the end of the day, the film filled a need that was already there from the audiences, which makes this film and her performance utterly timeless. It's tough to imagine Hedy Lamarr in the role, because Ingrid is just too perfect as Elsa. Through all the stress of putting together their characters' intentions and objectives, making sense of this story, Ingrid and Bogey work absolutely wonderfully together. There's just nothing like the iconic and passionate scene of Bogey and Ingrid, and how Curtiz just keeps the camera on Ingrid, listening and then crumbling. Now, you know what Bogey says. It's just everything, folks. This was most certainly the role for Ingrid that American audiences just clamor with love and adoration. And for most audiences, when they think of the iconic Oscar-winning picture, one of the first things they think of is Ingrid Bergman. Without a doubt, Casablanca remains probably the most popular and well-known performance and film in her whole career. Number 5, Anastasia. Or Anastasia, whatever you prefer. Tomato, you get the picture. But yes, the 1956 classic filled with retribution for Miss Ingrid, earning her second Academy Award for Best Actress, as supposedly the title role, the Royal Grand Duchess Anastasia. But is she really? For we discover Ingrid as Anna, an ailing Russian exile who is recruited by General Bunin, Yul Brynner, to impersonate the long-lost Duchess Anastasia, for it results in obtaining an inheritance belonging to the family if he found her. However, through the horrible trials and tribulations of training her mind to be the Grand Duchess, it weighs on the amnesiac Anna, even more because of the realization that she really might be Anastasia. Trouble is, can she convince the rest of the world, and more importantly, her grandmother, Empress Maria, played astoundingly brilliantly by the great Helen Hayes. I will be the first to admit, folks, the film itself, the execution, to me, not that amazing. However, you know what is amazing are the performances all around, specifically from Ingrid. She was always so masterful at channeling hysteria with thousands of flying thoughts which fog before her at a thunderous pace. How she can go mad in a second and channel it down again is incredible to watch. By all means, the best scene is between Ingrid and Helen, when they initially meet and Ingrid is trying her all to have her own grandmother believe her, but more so just embrace her, because even if she won't believe Anna, it's rewarding enough just to see her again. Both Ingrid and Helen heighten that scene to such thrillingly heartwarming results that you remember why Ingrid was one of the best. It marked Ingrid's great return to Hollywood, so to speak, after her adulterous affair with Rossellini, even though the film was still made overseas, so it was really Hollywood's embracement of her again and asking for forgiveness for practically blacklisting her for about 5 years. Regardless of the political underlines for her winning performance, I still believe she deserved it that year, for it showed the consistent power of Ingrid on a great character yearning for a home. Number 4, Europa 51, or also known as Europe 51, even though when it premiered in the US in 1954, it was cut entitled as The Greatest Love. Typical American action again on Roberto Rossellini's films, working with his wife Ingrid, giving such a spiritually powerful performance again as Irene, a wife of an American industrialist played by Alexander Knox, who neglects her son, Michel, whom unexpectedly falls down the stairs at home, injuring himself badly. Was it done intentionally? We don't know. She promises she'll never leave his side, even when Michel suddenly dies of a blood clot, leaving Irene distressed and devastated, finding new goals to help anyone and everyone who comes along her path, building up her spiritual faith, to lend a hand, even letting an armed teenager escape justice. Has Irene gone mad or just confused by the establishment? Very much thought-provoking drama supplied by Rossellini, with a great deal of improv again from Ingrid, who goes through such a metamorphosis of spirituality that it becomes so hard to watch sometimes. Ingrid just gives everything of herself to the role, everything, in what has been called a misunderstood masterpiece from Rossellini, retrospectively. Ingrid won the Best Actress Volpe Cup at the Venice Film Festival when it premiered, and quite frankly, she deserved so much more for her raw, transparent presence here as Irene. Of the 6 films she and Rossellini did together, I would say this is their best collaboration. As much as I love Journey to Italy as well, her magnetism speaks even louder with such a a strong story here. Number 3, Autumn Sonata. Yeah, yes indeed. As film historian Peter Cowie had said, it is the swan song of Ingrid Bergman's career. Finally, having the opportunity to work with the utterly somber and haunting writer-director Ingmar Bergman, no relation, in one of his almost by-the-numbers treatments of his own haunting story of mother and daughter, with Ingrid just perfectly cast as the narcissistic and selfish pianist of a mother who visits her daughter Ava, played greatly by Ingmar Bergman alum Liv Ullmann, after years of neglect. Once and for all, their grievances might come out, and they may as well heal from it, or continue the ever-running cycle of trauma. Most will say this is still such an Ingmar Bergman film where the actors aren't the focus, same as a Rossellini film. But no, Ingrid showcases a grand vulnerability in herself that has been long awaited for Ingmar. She had been wanting to work with him for years, even writing a letter for him to put in his pocket during the Cannes Film Festival, saying she wants to work together. And after years and years, all this time, he finally came up with a perfect character for her, and it so is. And of course, Ingrid and Ingmar clashed on set. Her acting style and process, mixed with Ingmar's directorial process, was very hard on her. All the while, Ingrid was battling her breast cancer. Practically everyone on set knew, which makes her performance even more powerful considering what she allows herself to go through. It can feel very much like a mirror to Ingrid's own life of abandoning her children, or at least from the public eye, and devoting herself solely to her industry and intimacy within the industry with her lovers. So needless to say, this was one hell of a vulnerable spot for Ingrid. For her mesmerizing work, she earned her 7th Academy Award nomination for Best Actress this time. And by God, it is a treasure, especially with her returning to her native tongue of Swedish after 11 years. Number 2, Notorious. I don't know if this is surprising for you all, but I'll be damned if this isn't one of the greatest shining star roles of one of the greatest female actors of all time. Riding high on success, but delivering a fantastically three-dimensional, entertaining, seductive, and captivating lead performance in one of Hitchcock's greatest pictures, with the love partnership of Ingrid and Cary Grant. No screen pairing had ever been so perfect other than Bogey and Bergman, of course. The classic story written by Ben Hecht, one of the greats, of Ingrid playing Alicia, the daughter of a convicted German spy who still lives the high life, taking in men and spirits, just mysteriously meeting Devlin, played so brilliantly by Cary Grant, who convinces her to spy on her father's Nazi friends, digging in deep on their uranium plot. But we all know that's just the grand MacGuffin to the ultimate love story that just builds and explodes like an erotic volcano. But when Alicia meets Alex, played also brilliantly by Oscar nominee Claude Rains, the spy work can be a little too hard on the both of them. This is certainly what erotic thrillers are all about, folks. And even at this time of 1946, you don't need gratuitous sex scenes in order to really feel the eroticism in this film. We certainly have a lot to thank Hitchcock for that, for this breathtaking film, but it's Ingrid that sells every inch of it. She fits perfectly of the party girl who gets entangled in a spy thriller and falling in love in the process. But on a deeper note, described by Hitchcock himself, it is the story of a woman sold for political purposes into sexual enslavement for the betterment of the government's goals. This could be such a victimized portrayal, but with Bergman behind the role, you have someone utterly confident and courageous with a deep affliction for love. There are so many iconic scenes featuring Ingrid that it's hard to keep count, like the famous 2.5-minute kiss that Hitchcock got away with, to the big horse race scene. The chemistry between Cary and Ingrid is astounding and still keeps us on the edge of our seat. I hate you. Dry your eyes, baby, it's out of character. It's so damn amazing. And most of the great character actions were courageously influenced by Ingrid herself, which Hitch approved, shockingly indeed, because nobody dared oppose Hitch's directorial ideas But with Ingrid, he felt he had a true collaborator with this film, and it's such a sight to behold. In my opinion, and among so many, many others, it's a performance that cements Ingrid as a top movie star of the age, that gave her free rein to play, to give, serve, and seduce like we've never, ever seen her before. Now get ready for some honorable mentions. Indiscreet, I know, must be surprising considering all the great classics she did as well, but I had to mention this little beauty, for it reunites the great star chemistry between Ingrid and, what do you know, Cary Grant, who both earned Golden Globe nominations for their work here. Indiscreet is also very significant, for this was really the first intentional romantic comedy Ingrid ever did, and she flies right alongside Cary, who apparently called this film his personal favorite that he had done. They truly are terrific together here, breaking screen boundaries of lying in bed together, but with a slash right down the middle, to avoid controversy. And with a classic European premise like an actress falls in love with a married man, and then, spoiler, offended that he's actually not married, is still hilarious. How dare he make love to me and not be a married man? Damn! Such a priceless line delivered perfectly by Ingrid. Murder on the Orient Express. Yes, absolutely needs to be an honorable mention. Yes, of course. It earned Ingrid her third Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress as Greta Olsson, the Swedish missionary who becomes a suspect of the murder on the Orient Express that needs to be solved by the famed detective Hercule Poirot, played brilliantly by Oscar nominee Albert Finney. Director Sidney Lumet wanted Ingrid for the role of Princess Dragomirov, which resulted in Wendy Hiller playing the silent hell out of that role, because Ingrid wanted the missionary role, for she felt there was something silently tragic and giving about that role. Plus, less to do, so Lumet decided to film her one big interrogation scene in one long continuous take. The levels and shifts that Ingrid goes through in that whole scene is actually inspiring. When she accepted her Oscar, she apologized to fellow nominee Valentina Cortesi, for she felt she deserved it for Truffaut's Day for Night, which is a fantastic film. And though I agree with her, that certainly never dismisses her scene-stealing performance in one of the greatest all-star Agatha Christie whodunit casts. Spellbound. Yeah, the first collaboration between Ingrid and Hitchcock, which doesn't get enough love and appreciation, in my opinion. Sure, it's not completely amazing from top to bottom as a film, but we must never forget the power and value of experimentalism in our artistry, which Hitchcock certainly did with Ingrid here. Ingrid plays Dr. Peterson with the invisible charisma needed for such a by-the-book psychiatrist who was accused of being cold and emotionless. But I mean, hey, when you have Gregory Peck showing up as your supervisor, that could definitely change things. And once she discovers his fatal past with a great touch of amnesia, she tries to free him from his spell and find the real killer who killed the Dr. Peck was impersonating. Bergman and Peck's chemistry is again quite fiery, so of course they had an affair while filming. But that doesn't mean that makes it better. Ingrid was already so present and commanding in this wild Hitchcockian psychological thriller. Joan of Arc, the 1948 film adaptation that had been a long-time passion project for Ingrid, after playing the famous role on Broadway in the play the film is based on, Joan of Lorraine, which won Ingrid her only Tony Award. Of course, controversially, it didn't help that Ingrid was 32 at the time of filming, playing a 19-year-old, and then allegedly having an affair with director Victor Fleming while filming this. Phew, when does it stop? However, through all the mixed feelings, Ingrid does give her lovingly spiritual heart to Joan, and you are swept away by her passion as Joan, which still earned Ingrid her 4th Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, a grand cinemascopic epic of somewhat tedious proportions. However, of course, Ingrid's Golden Globe and BAFTA nominated performance is the great example of the humanly giving spirit portrayed on screen, playing real-life British missionary Gladys Aylward, who takes over an inn to house traveling merchants in China, but plays more of a major influence in rescuing hundreds and hundreds of children once World War II starts. When you look and watch the film, it's Hollywood all over. What, with casting tall and beautiful Swedish Ingrid as Gladys, who is short and British, not looking like Ingrid? But still, 20th Century Fox prided itself on its cinemascope, and director Mark Robeson does film it beautifully, and most importantly, Ingrid gives it the heart that this important story needs. And that's always a trait audiences could always count on from Ingrid. Pure, genuine heart. Number 1, yes indeed, my mad friends, Gaslight. How can we deny the utter power that lies in Ingrid's first Academy Award-winning performance for Best Actress as Paula Alquist, a lovely and fragile niece of an opera singer, Alice, who is murdered at her London home. Paula acquires the home and meets Gregory, played charmingly and commandingly by Charles Boyer, in an Oscar-nominated performance, and became so romantically in love with each other. But slowly, Paula begins to be haunted by her aunt's murder and suspects strange happenings all around her, that her husband might be trying to kill her. Or is she just going mad? Indeed, one of director George Cukor's best films, which you can find right here on the top 10 best of George Cukor. Thank you so much. But Ingrid is just literally at the top of her game here. She was indeed very hesitant in taking the role because how can strong, independent woman Ingrid channel such a fragile and sensitive, meager wife? But any actor who doubts themselves can become strong and confident when they do their research and study. And study she did at a mental institution, studying women who suffered through nervous breakdowns. How Ingrid guides us with such grace and terror of complexity, hysteria, and hopefulness in performance has us hanging on for dear life. That makes her final moments with a tied-up Charles Boyer, spoiler, so satisfyingly invigorating. Oh God, she is just brilliant in that whole scene.
But because I am mad, I hate you. Because I am mad, I have betrayed you. And because I am mad, I'm rejoicing in my heart without a shred of pity, without a shred of regret, watching you go with glory in my heart.
Audiences have been reported to have clapped every time during this classic scene. Rightfully so. It is a miracle that Selznick loaned her out on the role, since Irene Dunne and Hedy Lamarr, Hedley, had turned it down. When it comes to a meager woman standing up for herself and fighting through any kind of perplexity in her mind and heart, Ingrid's masterclass performance is what audiences then, to audiences today, value and love so much. Which is why kids these days often threaten to not gaslight them. Ingrid was on top of the world at the time this was made and released, and for millions across the globe, it is often referred to as her greatest achievement. My goodness, it is always hard to rate these performances, isn't it, folks? Especially for icons like Ingrid. Roger Ebert had called her his favorite actress ever because she embodied beauty and a naturalism that Hollywood couldn't control. And even in the midst of her scandals, the affairs, and such, she still stood tall. In her own words, with her own home movies documentary, which I love, she never sought out to destroy her family like that. She is an actress, and emotions can always run high in this business. At the end of the day, she was a loving mother. Just ask her amazing actress of a daughter, Isabella Rossellini, whom has become such a treasure on screen herself. Having won the Oscar 3 times, an Emmy, and a Tony, it truly is a horrible shame how Ingrid was just one away from becoming an EGOT. So she is a toe? Maybe we can say. But awards, they can be overrated, can't they? What mattered was the courage, the vulnerability, and love for every one of her characters. Her spirit as a human being, which everyone loved and respected. Anthony Quinn had said, "I reckon there wasn't a man who came within a mile of her who didn't fall in love with her," which there is nothing more true than that. She unfortunately died right on her birthday at the age of 67. She is still regarded as one of the best that continues to inspire, study, and adore. Now here's looking at you, kid. Now tell me, my friends, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances by one of Hollywood's greatest and brilliant artists, Ingrid Bergman? Please comment below and keep them coming. My God, I never get tired of them. If you like this, please click like, subscribe to the channel, friends. And by all means, I love it if you became a YouTube member. You're missing out on all the great movie reviews and even more that are coming very, very soon. Until next time, folks, thank you so much for watching, and say it again, it keeps me awake. I love you.